Jackson Hinkle was on Tucker Carlson recently, so I think MAGA communism could be a real thing, not underestimate it, especially when most MAGA are real working class. It's a potentially dangerous combo to the status quo. That's it. It doesn't like the status quo. That's the only uniting factor between the communists and the MAGA movement. But Donald Trump is like the most obvious on-the-nose representation of American greed and capitalism. What do you think of MAGA communism? I think the only thing that unites like MAGA and like communists is like an anti-establishment kind of like shtick. You know what I mean? Like the idea that, hey, the Soros guy sucks, Bill Gates sucks, the establishment sucks. And that's like the only uniting thing between, I would say, the majority of communists and the MAGA movement. Outside of that, I mean, Donald Trump like appointed like, you know, union busters to head the Department of Labor. He had Rex Tillerson, a oil company CEO, an oil company executive, not CEO, be his Secretary of State. He did like massive tax cuts for the ultra rich and like, you know, companies, oil and gas companies. The majority of his tax cuts mostly benefited the ultra rich, with most of those tax cuts being permanent, while the tax cuts for middle income and lower income Americans being temporary. He tried to loosen labor regulations. I don't see that movement if it's led by that man, who's also personally extremely corrupt and hyped up, and somebody who increased drone strikes in Afghanistan to a huge, drastic amount. I mean, Donald Trump not only increased the amount of drone strikes from the Obama administration, but he increased it and then restricted information to those drone strikes. This doesn't feel like stuff that I would align like ideologically with communism. Not that you can't be a communist and do drone strikes. Drones are just a tool. But if I think of like the American communists, or like most communists, they're not that approving of like American drone strikes in the Middle East. But I don't think that's inherently, I guess you can be like pro drone striking the Middle East and a communist. I don't think it's inherently against it. I mean, the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan and they fucked up Afghanistan massively. Killed fucking millions of people. But I don't think it has any staying power. I think it's mostly just like a meme. Jackson Hinkle was on Tucker Carlson recently, so I think MAGA communism could be a real thing, not underestimate it, especially when most MAGA are real working class. I mean, like, if I got a goat that like farted the alphabet, I could get it on Fox News. Alex Stein was on Fox News. That doesn't mean Alex Stein is the next big thing. Mike Lindell just got a segment on Tucker Carlson talking about how he's getting persecuted because he voted for Donald Trump, the pillow guy who did the cyber symposium. Just because you're covered on the news does not mean you can do a political movement. I think people like, you know, Joshua Collins kind of showed that. Joshua Collins is somebody who had a pretty big social media presence. You know, he had more followers on Twitter than Jackson Hinkle currently does, or I currently have. He had a pretty decent TikTok following. He, you know, he did the shakes to his socialist tunes, and he got less votes in the election he ran on than a dead guy. He got less votes than somebody who was literally dead. And like Jackson Hinkle did run for office and he lost. I mean, maybe if he runs again on like a MAGA Republican platform, did you think he would do much better? I mean, if you go to most Republicans and you ask them, especially MAGA Republicans, what do you think of communism? The majority of them are going to say that fucking Biden piece of shit cocksuckers are communists destroying this country. Or they're going to be like, my father fought in Vietnam against those Viet Cong fucks and they tortured American POWs. It's not a bridge you can gap. The only thing that unites them is the anti-authority. It's not even anti-authoritarian. It's because I think that like a lot of communists in the United States, not most communists, but I would say a decent section of them, especially those who call themselves MAGA communists, simp for authoritarian governments around the world. But there's no ideological connection. Just because somebody's poor does not mean they ideologically agree with you. A great example would be France. A lot of the poor in France during the French Revolution joined the reactionary French monarchists, even though you could say, but the working class, these are the poor. They don't care. They're like God, country, and king, and they fought for it. They fought and died for it against Napoleon and against, the rest of the French revolutionaries. Why? Because they ideologically thought that way. That was their belief system. That was what they were raised to do. I mean, the MAGA movement, the people in the MAGA movement had an opportunity to vote for somebody who went and traveled to the Soviet Union, right? It was Bernie. they didn't, though. I just don't, I don't think it would work at all. I think a lot of people kind of like overhype exactly how popular communism can be in the United States in the short term, even in the long term, honestly. Especially like the mix of those two ideologies specifically. This doesn't make any sense. I mean, Donald Trump is like the most obvious on-the-nose representation of American greed and capitalism. Somebody who scammed a bunch of poor schmucks out of Trump University. Somebody who did everything he could to not hire union labor. Somebody who scammed employees out of their wages. We saw what happened in Scotland. I mean, this is not really a secret. Somebody who got a lot of his buddies like government deals. Somebody who took money from the Saudis at Trump Hotel, and that's the man who's gonna like unite with the communists when he's constantly calling his political opposition communists because it's like a tried and true Republican attack. Why would they give up a tried and true Republican attack? But Trump's favorite leaders were Xi and Kim Jong. But let me ask you a question. Why was Trump's favorite leader Xi and Kim Jong-un? Was it because, I like the direction that Xi took with Chinese socialism, socialism with Chinese characteristics? Is that what he said? Or was it like, I like how Xi deals with those fucking like those rat fucks who speak out against him. I wish we could do that to the lying press here, the lying media. Those fucking, look at those fucking lying fake news fucks. Look at them all. Look at them all. In China, they just kill the drug dealers. We should do that here. China, they're sending us fentanyl. They're killing our people, the Chinese. They're sending fentanyl and killing us. They're killing us. The Chinese are killing us with fentanyl. But in China, you think they're going to allow that? No, they'd kill him. They'd kill him. This is like his talking points. This is what he would talk about a decent amount. Like, he didn't like Xi because of his beliefs about socialism or communism. Right? Even though, of course, private property is enshrined in the Chinese constitution after Deng's reforms, right? So, I mean, like, but I don't want to get into specifics of whether China is a communist state or not. But the reason he liked Kim Jong and the reason he liked Xi was not because of their ideological commitment to communism or Juche thought. It was because they were strong men. And Trump sees himself in that character. He sees himself as a strong man. He loves that image of himself. It's not a secret that Trump has a massive ego. It's not a secret that Trump doesn't really have a huge respect for American democracy. He doesn't really expect our election systems. Every single time he ran for office, he would say, hey, if I lose, it was rigged. He said it in 2015 during the primaries. He said it during the 2016 run-up to the general. He said it in the run-up to 2020. And we saw what he did in 2020 when he lost. I think that's his connection with people like Xi and Kim Jong-un and Putin. I mean, if we look at him, like, look how friendly he was with the Saudi government. Does that mean Trump's a monarchist and a communist? We're gonna have like a kingdom of communism. I mean, he liked the Saudis. He was friends with them even after they assassinated the journalist. He liked Vladimir Putin. He liked Xi. He liked Kim. I mean, if we're talking about like their authoritarian tendencies, there's no ideological consistency between all these people besides they're not democracies. You can't be the kingdom of Saudi Arabian communism. There's no like ideological consistency there. The only thing Trump believes in is Trump. If I was to really if somebody forced me to like pin down what Trump's political philosophy was, it It would be like anti-establishment oligarchy. Not with that attitude, quitter. But yeah, no, I don't think MAGA communism has any future, domestically, internationally, anywhere. I think its future will mostly be on YouTube, and Rumble, and Truth Social, on like certain corners of it. That's it. I don't think Trump's gonna start picking like communist advisors. I don't think that's gonna happen. So no, I don't take MAGA communism seriously. I also think a lot of it is just to get attention. I think a lot of people realize that just saying that out loud, it sounds inherently fucking stupid. And so when you say MAGA communism, it like gets attention. Like if you're like an average person, you hear MAGA communism, you're gonna look over like, what? And like you'll look at it the same way you look at like a clown at the circus, like throwing pies everywhere. I don't know, it seems like a potentially dangerous combo to the status quo, but that's the thing. Listen to the language you just used. It's a potentially dangerous combo to the status quo. That's it. It doesn't like the status quo. That's the only uniting factor between the communists and the MAGA movement. But I could say this about Possadists. I could say this about anarcho-primitivists, anarcho-communists. I could say this about just straight up neo-Nazis. I could say this about Anders Breivik, that fucking like Norwegian like sniper Nazi terrorist. I could say this about like a million different political figures, a million different radical, crazy, insane political movements. But if I wanted to unite anarcho-primitivism and neo-Nazism and MAGA and a lot of these things are incompatible, because they have different problems with the establishment. The problem Trump has with the establishment is not that poor people are not getting enough money and we need to address income inequality with America. No, Trump is a representation of American income inequality. He's like a flagrant representation of it, as he paints everything in fucking gold. The only thing that unites them is they don't like the establishment, but that's not something to build a movement around. Because that'd be like the Libertarians and the Green Party. Like, okay, do you think they could make a coalition government, the Libertarians and the Green Party, just because they don't like the American establishment? They're in the exact opposite directions. The Green Party wants massive government intervention. They want massive investment in green energy and trying to restrict environmental. They want to do more environmental regulations. The Libertarians want to go in the exact other direction. Like, they agree that they want to end a two-party system, but that's it. They're not going to make any coalition government. So there's no unity. So let's say that somehow MAGA communism, despite all of its ideological inconsistency and internal just ability not to match up, and the fact that the Republican movement and MAGA would have to give up the old tried and tested true "you're a communist, fuck you" attack on the Democrats as they literally align themselves with communists, what would happen? What would happen once let's say they get rid of the establishment? Do you think communists and Donald Trump are going to be able to make a government that is communist? Or is follows the values of the MAGA movement? Do you think look at how China responded to COVID? Do you think the MAGA movement's going to go down with that? Everybody stay in your homes. You're not allowed to leave. Drones going between skyscrapers, literally yelling, "Stay in your homes, do not leave." You think the MAGA movement, which was behind the truckers' protest, is going to give a thumbs up to that? Of course not. There's just no ideological consistency there. Not to mention, the majority of the MAGA movement's not a big fan of China in the first place. No. I don't see it, buddy. I don't see it. I'm sorry that your MAGA communism is not going to be recognized. Why is my camera keep turning off?